Okay, everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. So, in today's class, we're going to be focusing on the past paper of May 2023 IB MYP Standard Mathematics. So, the first question, which is of 4 marks, says for each puzzle, select the correct puzzle piece with equivalent values from the draggable options and place it in the space provided. So, we have 240 meters, 5.15 millimeters, and 42 kilometers. Focusing on 240 meters first. Whenever there is a multiple choice of a type of a question, try your best to eliminate the wrong option first. So what do we do in this case? 240, of course, if we have to convert it into any specific units, let's talk about, for instance, kilometers. So 240 can be converted to 240 meters can be converted into kilometers if we divide it by 1,000. So 240 divided by 1,000 becomes 0.24. So both of the options are valid. And if you want to convert meter into centimeter, so we have to multiply 240 by 10. So that gives us 2400, right? So both of the options all three of the options seem correct as of yet. But wait a second. Yeah, so 240 meters is correct on all places. But what about 515 millimeters and what about 42 kilometers? Now, 42 kilometers by default, we should know that this is equivalent to 42,000 meters, and it's not equivalent to 0.042 meters, right? Why? Because kilometer to meter means that there should be a multiplication by 1,000. So 0.042 is not going to be the correct option. So that's why this one is the correct answer. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Uh, Now, for this part, we have 23 million in the numerator, like not the numerator, the value above. And we have the power 2.3 into 10 raised to the power of 7 into 10 raised to the power of 7 and into 10 raised to the power of negative 7 here, the third triangle. The third triangle tells us negative 7. So automatically we should eliminate the third one. Okay. And what are we going to do next? We have 1.5 into 10 power positive 3. So 1.5 into 10 power positive 3 means that the value of the decimal point is going to be moving forwards. So one value forward, two value forwards, three value forward. So this becomes 1500. So automatically we must know that the answer is going to be this one. 2.3 into 10 raised to the power of positive 7, 1500 and 0.04. We can verify this. 0.04 becomes 4.10 into 10 raised to the power of negative 2. So that would be the correct answer as well. Okay. I hope this makes sense to all of you. Then the third part says a raised to the power of n multiplied by a raised to the power of 4. So we must know that in such a case, when there are different powers and a multiplication sign with the same basis, so the powers are supposed to add. So above we'll have a raised to the power of n plus 4. This option is present here. This option is present here. So this option is immediately cancelled. Now 2c square plus c square. This obviously becomes 5c square and that's common. But we have to verify about this one. B raised to the power of negative 6 divided by b raised to the power of 3. Now, in order to solve this question, we must be well aware that since the value of the base, not the base, in fact, the value of, yeah, you can call it the base is constant and there is a minus, there is a division sign in between. So the powers are going to subtract with each other, right? So we get minus 6 minus 3. So minus 6 minus 3 gives us an answer of negative 9. So this is going to be the equivalent puzzle piece that we're going to be having here. Okay, I hope all of this makes sense. and this one, under root 5 plus 2 under root 5. Now, this should not be a problem at all for anyone because it's like straightforward, as the value of the surd inside the surd remains same and the value outside simply adds. So we get 3 under root 5 here. So 3 under root 5 is present here, 3 under root 5 is present here. This is going to be a wrong answer. Okay. But what about the others? We have 5 root, we have under root 5 multiplied by under root of 5. So when any under root is being multiplied with itself twice or being squared, we know it gives us an answer of a whole number, right? So 5 is present here and 5 is present here. Then we are left with under root of 18. Okay. Under root of 18 can be written in two ways. It can either be written as under root of 6 times under root of 3, or it can also be written as under root of 9 multiplied by under root of 2, and we know that under root of 9 is 3, so this can be written as 3 root 2, right? So automatically we know that this would be the final answer. Okay, I hope this makes sense. We are done with question number 1. Wait a second, maybe I just added this additional information here by mistake. Yeah. A bag contains 10 dark chocolates and 15 white chocolates. 2 chocolates are selected at random from the bag and not replaced. Not replaced is the key part, which means they're removed. So the possibility of it being dark is 10 and the possibility of it being white is 15, right? Because there's a total of 25. Okay, first things first. Now, what about it being not replaced? So not replaced means it's being removed. So in the first case, if we have removed the dark chocolate, so we get 9 out of 25. And if we, in the first value, if we got dark and we want a white chocolate in the second option, give me a second. Okay, so automatically the denominator value is going to decrease. Okay, and just like that, if we were to get a white chocolate in the first case, and a dark chocolate in the second case. So of course, one value is going to be removed from the denominator. The denominator is going to change in any situation, okay? The denominator is going to change in any situation if it is if it is not being replaced. But the numerator depends on the situation. So if we get white chocolate in the first scenario and white chocolate in the second scenario, so that gives us an answer of 14 as well. Okay, I hope this makes complete sense. Now this was the first part. It says determine the probability that exactly 2 dark chocolates are selected. Exactly 2 dark chocolates are selected. So 2 dark chocolates being selected means basically this tree diagram, right? 10 over 25 multiplied by 9 over 25. So if you were to solve it, 10 over 25 times 9 over, wait, we get 9 over 24 in fact, my bad. 9 over 24. So calculate this value. Let me use my calculator as well. 10 over 25 times 9 over 24. This gives us an answer of 3 over 20. And since it's a non-recurring decimal, so you can also write this as 0.15. That would also be a correct option. Hence, now this is a past paper strategy. Whenever you see the word hence, it means that you have to use the previous part to solve that question. Hence, determine the probability that at least one white chocolate is selected. Okay, at least one white chocolate is selected. Now, Logically speaking, there can be two ways of doing this. Let's try the easy way out. Look, if the probability of getting exactly two dark chocolates, meaning both dark chocolates, is 3 by 20, so getting at least one white chocolate should be 1 minus 3 by 20. Am I right? Logically speaking, getting at least one white chocolate should be 1 minus 3 by 20. So this is going to give us an answer of 17 over 20, or basically 0.85. So there is more of a chance that we get a white, at least one white chocolate, than us getting both dark chocolates. Right? I hope that makes sense. Then it says a third chocolate is selected at random from the bag. Find the probability that exactly two dark chocolates are selected out of the three. Okay. Find the probability that exactly two dark chocolates are selected, which means that the third one is supposed to be a white chocolate. Hmm. How do we solve this one? Now look, we have the general probability of getting two dark chocolates, right? So we know that the first probability of getting a dark chocolate is 10 by 25, without a doubt. And the second probability of getting a dark chocolate is 9 by 24. Now, if this approach continues and we do not replace the value, so the third probability would automatically be, no, in fact, in the third scenario, if we get white chocolate, so in the third scenario, we would get 15 out of 23. Am I right? So what do we have to do? First things first, we have to solve this together. 10 over 25 multiplied by 9 over 24 multiplied by 15 over 23. So let's solve this one first. 10 by 25 multiplied by 9 over 24 times, 10 by 25, wait a second everyone. 10 over 25 multiplied by 9 over 24 multiplied by 15 over 23. So that gives us 9 divided by 92. Okay, but here is the catch. Now, the question does not specify any order. So the question doesn't say that the probability of getting two dark chocolates and the third should be, and one white chocolate should be that the first two should be dark and the last one should be white. So it can be white, dark, dark. It could be dark, white and dark. It could be dark, dark and white. So there is a total of three possibilities in that order of sequence. So what do? We multiply this value by 3. If we multiply this, we are going to get an answer of 27 divided by 92. So here you get it. 27 over 92 would be your final answer. I hope this part makes complete sense. Let me remove rest of the information. Okay, 27 over 92. That's the final answer. Now, how did I solve this question? Of course, I cannot give too much detail, but basically, we have to consider the idea that it does not specify an order of sequence. For example, if I say that a football team has played 5 matches, and out of 5 matches, they have won 3 and lost 2, right? So it doesn't mean that their campaign was lost and won. It's not necessary. This is one of the probabilities. It could also be lost, won, lost, won. It could also be won, lost. It could be any probabilities, right? So once we find out all of those probabilities, then we have to multiply them with the number of total probabilities that we get. So that would be the answer. Looks like I had solved this question from before, but let's solve it again because I was teaching a few kids before, you people as well. So yeah, circle theorems. It says determine the missing angles in the diagram below. Now we know that since this angle is 82 degrees, without a shadow of doubt, this angle should also be 82 degrees. Why? Because they're opposites of each other. Okay? Now, if that angle is 82, we know that this angle should be a sum of 180. So 180 plus 82 plus 28 plus theta. So if we were to solve for theta, we would get an answer of 28 plus 82 is 110. So 180 minus 110 would give us an answer of positive 70, right? This one would give us an answer of positive 70. Now, if this one is positive 70, we should know that these two angles are corresponding to each other, corresponding angles. And this one is also going to be 28 degrees, right? So basically, we have to consider the idea if angles are starting from the same chord, so they are going to be making same value. So for example, this was the starting chord, for instance, this one, right? So if you were to consider this idea, mathematically speaking, uh, this starts from the same chord and this starts from the same chord. So yeah, you get it. Makes sense? Great. Triangle AED is similar to BEC. State the reason. AED is similar to BEC. Okay, first things first, we know that um, hmm, they have equal angles. I think we just have to mention the fact that it's a 1 mark question. Oops. So we can say that they both have equal angles. Okay, that's going to be sufficient. It's a 1 mark question, so it's not going to ask for a lot of detail. Hence, form and solve a quadratic equation to show that x equals 3. Okay. Look, I can say that uh, all of these angles are basically congruent to each other, right? So I can definitely mention this idea that 1 over x plus 1 equals x minus 1 over x plus 5, right? Because they're basically congruent angles of each other. And now what do we have to do? We just have to cross multiply. So x plus 5 equals x minus 1 into x plus 1. X plus 5 equals x squared plus x minus 1. So plus x and minus x cancels out. So we have, let me solve it here, x squared. Let me solve it using a different colored pen so that it can integrate well enough. X squared minus x minus 1 minus 5, this becomes minus 6, right? We have x squared minus 3x minus 2x minus 6. X taken as common, and within the bracket we have x minus 3 minus 2 taken as common, and within the bracket we have x minus 3, right? Uh, no, I think I'm doing something wrong here. Minus 3x plus 2x, sorry, plus 2x is what it should be. And here we'll have x plus 2. So we have two brackets, x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. So x one value is negative 2 and the other value should be positive 3, right? Now, of course, x cannot have a negative value. X is supposed to have a positive value, okay? So, yeah, x equals 3 and we've proven it. AED is similar to BEC, x equals 3, okay. Give that AD equals 2.1, AD equals 2.1, calculate the perimeter. Okay, so basically this is 2, this is 1, this is 2.1. Let me write it straight. This is 8, this is 4. Okay, so if we were to look at the ratios, if you were to look at it from the ratios perspective, so look, this side is being multiplied by 2. In fact, no, this side is being, as compared to the other triangle, this is being multiplied by 4, right? And this side, as compared to the other triangle, is being multiplied by 4. So automatically, can we assume that this side also needs to be multiplied by 4? So 2.1 multiplied by 4 gives us an answer of 8.4. And if we were to individually solve those values, we get 8.4 plus 2.1 plus 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. So please solve it and tell me what answers do we get. We are getting an answer of 25.5. So yeah, 25.5 is the right answer. Okay, so question number 3 is complete. How many marks was question number 3? Let me check. Uh, 10 marks. Question number 2 was 9 marks, so that's 19 marks. And question number 1 was 4 marks. So that's 23. In 25 minutes, we are done with 23 marks. Although there were some interruptions, but now we can continue. Okay. The diagram below shows an isosceles triangle with the dimensions indicated on the diagram. Show that A is 17.1 correct to three significant figures. Okay. So can we consider this idea as a right angled triangle? Ideally, we should. So if I make a right angled triangle here, so this length becomes 24 over 2, which becomes 12. This is of 55 degrees, and this remains h, right? And this is the 90-degree mark. Okay, this is going to be the base, and this is going to be the perpendicular. So which trigonometric identity links perpendicular and base with each other? Tan of theta equals perpendicular over base. So we get tan of 17, no, sorry, tan of 55 equals the perpendicular, which is what we are finding out, over base of 12. So perpendicular equals 12 multiplied by tan of 55. So solve it. So what answer do we get? P equals 17.137. So correct to three significant figures, that becomes 17.1. Right? I hope that's clear. The isosceles triangle is above used to form the four faces of a square-based pyramid shown in the diagram below. Interact with the slider to see different faces of the pyramid. Okay. So, okay. One is the aerial view and the other one is the concave view from below. So basically, this is what we have. All right. This one is going to be, so basically this is the base of the pyramid, and this length is of 17.1 centimeters, the dashed line that we had just found. Determine the value of the height h. So, okay, this height. In fact, no, my bad. Now look, I can definitely say that this dotted line, this one here, this is basically a right angle triangle, right? Now the value of a is what we had just found out. The value of a was 17.1, and this length is basically the half of 24 centimeters, the base length basically. So I can write this as 12, and h square should be equal to 17.1 squared minus 12 squared, as basically 17.1 is basically the what do you call, the hypotenuse. 17.1 is the hypotenuse. So solve this question. H equals under root of 17.1 minus 12. So solve the question, tell me what answer do you get. I'm getting an answer of 12.2. 12.23. 235. So let me just write down 12.24. Okay, that would be the right answer. So let's copy this down so that we can have it at one place. Calculate the volume of the pyramid. Give your answer to the nearest integer. Volume of a pyramid is given by the formula 1 over 3 multiplied by base multiplied by height. No, in fact 1 over 3 1 over 3 r square h. So basically r is supposed to be the radius, right? 1 over 3 r square h. So we get 1 over 3 multiplied by the radius. The radius in our case, we don't have a radius, but it's going to be considered as 24, right? It's going to be considered as 24. So 24 square multiplied by the height. So what's the height? Height is what we just calculated, I think 12.24, right? 12.24. So solve it and tell me what answer do you get. Do it. I'm getting an answer of 2349. Okay, the marking scheme says 2338. And I understand the difference. The difference was that the marking scheme considered the idea, the value of 12.18. Why? Because basically, when we were solving this Pythagoras theorem, so there were two options of 17.1 squared, and the other option was of 17.135, so on and so forth. So the mistake I did was taking square of this. And when I put this, I got an answer of 12.24. Instead, in the marking scheme, 12.24 was also accepted. But 12.18 was the one that was rather preferred. And in this case, we also get 12.18 as a better option. So if I put 12.18, I am going to get an answer of 200 and, no, in fact, 2338. Okay, that would be the right answer. A larger pyramid is created by increasing. Okay, so then it says a larger pyramid is created by increasing all of the dimensions by 10%. Find the percentage increase of the volume. Find the percentage increase of the volume. Okay, it doesn't tell us to find the volume, it just tells us to find the percentage increase. Now, an increase in the dimension by 10% can also be written as, now look, the quickest and the easiest method to solve it is that when all linear dimensions of a 3D shape are scaled up by a factor of k, the volume changes by a factor of k cube. So what you have to do is find the scale factor. Factor of scale, which is represented as k. So of course for volume it's going to be k cube, right? Now the value of k is 1.1. Why? Because a 10% increase shows us 1.1 of the value. So yeah, 1.1. So if k is 1.1, so k cube becomes 1.1 whole cube. So now what does this become? 1.1 cube. This becomes 1.331. Okay, this is what it becomes. Now, logically speaking, By default, the original percentage was 100%, and 1.331 becomes 133.1%. If we want to find the percentage increase, we can write 133.1 minus 100%. This becomes 33.1%. So that would be your answer. So if dimensions increased by 10%, so there would be 133.1% increase in this value. The following infographic shows how an organization produces energy from non-recyclable waste. Okay. The pie chart shows the type of commercial waste received by the organization in 1 month. The total weight of the commercial waste was 45,000 tons. Determine the weight of non-cyclable commercial waste. So non-recyclable is 16%, right? So can I write this as 16 over 100 multiplied by 45,000? So the zeros cancel out and I am left with the answer of 45 times 16, which becomes 720 tons. So I think it's a 1 mark question only. Apparently, yes, it might be. In the same month, the weight of non-recyclable waste received from the different categories was in the ratio of 15, 8 and 3 for domestic, commercial and industrial. Determine the weight of non-recyclable industrial waste. Okay. Non-recyclable industrial waste. So with reference to commercial and industrial, it's 8:3, right? Right? So 3 ratio, can I write this as 3 ratio 720? In fact, no, 3 ratio 8 is the same as X ratio 720 as what we had initially found out, right? With reference to industrial, and because we know the value of the commercial weight. The commercial weight is waste is written by the ratio of 8 and it was of 720 tons. So X 8x equals 720 times 3. X equals 720 times 3 over 8. So this becomes 90 times 3, which gives us an answer of 270, right? I hope this makes sense. Okay, TJ, terajoules. So a key has been given us where it says that T represents tons and TJ represents terajoules, which is 1.10 into 10 raised to the power of 12. These are basically prefixes. You people might be studying this in physics later on. So you are told that the value for the domestic weight in tons is of 1350, and that's the input, right? And the energy produced is of 135 terajoules. So it asks you to fulfill the idea of production ratio, which is energy per ton. Energy per ton. So energy per ton can be considered by the values. It should be terajoule divided by tons. So the terajoule is of 135 in the first row of domestic category, domestic waste, and tons is 1350. So that answer is going to be somewhere around. So basically this cancels out, right? So we get an answer of 0.1. Okay, we will get an answer of 0.1. Then what? Then it asks for commercial. Now commercial is an answer from A. So what was the answer of A? That was 720. And since this is 720, and since the ratios of course is going to be same, right? The ratio in this case was of 0.1. The ratio is supposed to be same. And 720 multiplied by 0.1 gives us an answer of 72. So that's correct. Answer from B. The answer of B was 270 for the industrial waste. 270. And we have 2R. So basically R is being multiplied by 2. The ratio is by default supposed to remain same. So 0.1 times 2 becomes 0.2. And if we multiply 270 with 0.2, we get an answer of 54. Let me verify. Yes, we get 54. Then it says total energy produced by the organization this month. So we are supposed to add 135 plus 72 plus 54. So what do we get? Hmm, 261. 261 terajoules of energy was produced, which means by default it says the production ratio is 0.1, which means a huge amount was going to waste. That makes sense. Okay. A town has 68,420 homes. The table shows the energy used by the town in the year of 2022. Okay, so this was 5 part D, right? Show that the estimate of the mean value per month by the town is 900 terajoules to the nearest 10 terajoules. So 900 terajoules to the nearest 10 terajoules means basically it should be between 890 and 910. A number between it basically. So this is basically the class width and this is basically the frequency. So what are we supposed to do? Since we have to find the estimate mean, we have to take the middle value. So 870 and 850, the middle value is 860. Right? And we continue. This is 880. This is 900. This is 920. And this is 940. But we're not done with it yet. Because we have to multiply the class width with the frequency. So 2 times 860 plus 880 times 4 plus 2 times 900 plus 1 times 920, so that remains 920 plus 3 times 940. And this entirety is going to be divided by the total frequencies, which is 2 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3, which gives us positive 12. So, if we were to solve this question, what do we get? 2 times 860 plus 4 times 880 plus 2 times 900 plus 920 plus 3 times 940 divided by 12. So this gives us an answer of 898. And remember that I told you to the nearest to the 10 terajoules means, nearest to 10 means 10 over 2, which becomes 5. So 900 plus minus 5 was our extent of inaccuracy. So the minimum value should be 895 and the maximum value should be 905. So our answer is 898. So it falls into that category. So it's the right answer. That's how you're supposed to solve. These are basically free four numbers. So that you don't even have to put in any effort. Easy, straightforward. Given that every month 900 terajoules of energy can provide power for 68,420 homes, the organization produces a total energy of your answer from part C, which was 261. Okay. Uh, Find the maximum number of homes that can be powered by the organization. Okay. So there are 68,420 homes in that region. Okay. And each and every house uses an energy of roughly 898. Okay, let's not consider 898, let's consider 900 directly as the one that was given in the question. Okay, so how do you solve this one? Interesting. Look, if we were to divide 261 by 900 terajoules. Okay, how to solve question party? Let me re-explain. Now you've been given that 900 terajoules of energy can provide power for 68,420 homes. But how much do we have? We have a maximum of 261, right? So 261 over 900 multiplied by 68,420. That's all you had to do in this part. 420, we'll get an answer of 19,842. So that's the number of houses that would get energy. I hope that makes sense. The answer here was 261, right? So, which means it's not sufficient to provide energy. Okay, here comes question number 6, I think. Okay, no need to read all of this. This script that is usually given. Look, most of the questions that are in your syllabus now, you don't even have to literally solve the entire question. Like read the entire question. Just read the numerical points. This is from other parts. Start by reading this part first. So it says that JAMIT is basically an industrial organization that needs to review their carbon emissions. They estimate that they will emit approximately 120,000 tons, which means 120 kilotons every year. And they've set a target that they want to reduce by the next 8 years, by 2030, right? Okay, so the government's annual carbon emission limits for JAMIT can be modeled by the following equation: E equals A into 10 minus n whole square plus 80. Okay, so how do we solve this part? Show that A equals 0.4. Look, this is the mathematical model, right? Which has been given for the equation. Uh, so by default, have a look. When the value of n is basically the number of years after 2022, right? When the value of n is 0, when the value of n is 0, what's the value of E? This point, 120, right? So when the value of n is 0, the value of E is 120. So 120 equals A into 10 squared plus 80. 120 minus 80 equals 100A. 40 equals 100A. And 40 over 100 equals A. So this becomes 0.4. So that would be the right answer. You just have to locate at where the information is given. So when the value of n is 0, the value of E is 120. Part B says, hence determine the annual limit, carbon emission limit set by the government for JAMIT in 2024. So in 2024, it's basically 2 years after 2022. So we'll consider the value of n, which is 2, right? The value of n is supposed to be 2 in this case. So we have the equation, which is E equals 0.4 into 10 minus n whole square plus 80. And now the value of n is 2. So we get 0.4 into 10 minus 2, which is 8 square plus 80. 0.4 multiplied by 64 plus 80. So what's 0.4 multiplied by 64? 25.6 plus 80, which becomes 105.6 kilotons, right? Makes sense? If JAMIT does not invest in technology, their carbon emissions will be above the limit set by the government. Of course, they have to do some investment. So they will have to buy an additional carbon units on the carbon market. The cost of carbon units is $60,000 per kiloton. Determine the cost of the carbon units that JAMIT will have to buy in 2024. Okay, so what do we know? Basically, this part is asking us that this is the amount that it needs to invest per carbon unit, right? So what was the initial amount of emissions? That was 120. And what was the limit set by 2024? 105.6. If we find the difference of it, this becomes 14.4. Now what does 14.4 have to do with this value? 14.4 is basically, so you can consider this a cushion amount. And 14.4 kilotons is the amount that of which the carbon has to of which JAMIT has to pay per carbon unit. So 14.4 multiplied by 60,000. Can anyone tell me what answer it is? Use the chat box. I won't be entertaining. Yeah, 864,000. Very well done. Okay, so that would be your answer for 6 part C. Yeah, that's our last question for the day. We'll solve. We'll have a crash course on question number 7 soon. We will solve many question number 7s at the same time. Calculate, I think this is 6 part D, I guess. Calculate the number of years that the carbon emissions are below the limit set by the government. Okay. Hmm. It should be below the number of years. So let's solve it. Okay. So if you look at the graph above, the limit that was set by the government was this one. What number is this? So this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. No, 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 no. Doing something wrong. I'm saying something wrong. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. What does the question say? Let me see the question again. Until what year was it talking about? Number of years. N is 8. Now look. What value of n? Basically, we have to find the value of n by default. Huh. Now the emissions, the minimum possible value of emissions we know uh, should be reduced to 90 kilotons as what was shown in the graph, right? So I can say that this entire inequality 0.4 into 10 minus n whole square plus 80 should be lesser than or equal to 90. So this gives me 0.4 into 10 minus n whole square is greater than or equal to 10, because 10 90 80 goes to the other side of the equation. This becomes positive 10. Then we have 10 minus n whole square is greater than or equal to 10 divided by 0.4. 10 divided by 0.4 can also be written as 2 over 5. So this becomes 25, right? And we have 10 minus n is greater than or equal to under root of 25, which becomes 5, which means, oh, this makes the question entirely easy. That the maximum possible value of n would be minus n is greater than or equal to minus 5, or n is lesser than or equal to positive 5. Okay, so 5 years would be the limit. So that goes on up till number of years is from 2022 till 2027. So 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2026 years. From 2022 to 2027. That's a total of 6 years if we count 2022 as well. So that would be your answer. Okay. Now, Hamjo is another organization reviewing its carbon emissions. If Hamjo does not install filters, let's just wait for some time. I mean, we're having a session for an hour. Just wait for like 10 more minutes. We need to get done with the last part. I don't want to, linger it on. Yeah. They must buy a total of 222 kilotons of carbon units. If Hamjo does install filters, it will cost $14 million to install filters. Their carbon emissions reduced to 77 kilotons per year. Okay, Hamjo is doing a remarkable job, it seems. Differences in carbon emissions. In 2022, wait. So, Hamjo is this one. Okay, Hamjo is not doing a good job, it's just moving as it is. Yeah, so they have a stagnant line. Meanwhile, the government's annual carbon emission limits are decreasing. So, hmm. So yeah, ideally they're not doing the best job. This is what we can see. Okay. So we have to solve this. For the year 2024, we know that the value of n is 2, right? So, and in that year, the emissions of Jamet was 105.6. And for Hamjo, Hamjo is the name, I guess? Hamjo, yeah. It was 77. So if we subtract both of them, we get an answer of 28.6. We're supposed to subtract because it is asking us for the difference in carbon emissions between the two, Hamjet and Hamjo. Sorry, Jamet and Hamjo. Oh my god. Hmm. Now, for year 3, basically year 2025, we had the first equation 0.4 into 10 minus 3 whole square plus 80. So if we were to solve this on a calculator, we would get uh, 80, this is 99.6. And if we were to subtract that by 77, because Hamjo has remained stagnant, that becomes 22.6. In 2026, it became 0. Quite remarkable. In 2029, we have the equation 0.4 into 10 raised to the power of, instead of minus 3, we're going to write minus 7 here. So 0.4 into 3 square plus 80. So that gives us 83.6 for 2029 minus 77. This gives us an answer of 6.6 kilotons. And by the last year, 2030, 8 years have passed. 0.4 into 10 minus 8 whole square. 10 minus 8 is 2. 2 square is 4. 4 into 0.4 is 1.6. 1.6 plus 80 is 81.6. And 81.6 minus 77 gives us an answer of 4.6. So this was the year. Now, what about the value of difference in carbon emissions in $1,000,000? So 19.5 here should be multiplied by 60,000 as the value remains as it is, right? So 19.6 multiplied by 60,000, that becomes 1.176 million. So basically 1,716,000. You can also write it that way. Wait a second. For that year, it's hmm. So for 19.5, yeah, we were doing the right thing. 19.5, so we will get an answer of 1.17. For 28.6, we have to multiply the values with 60,000. Okay, 1.716, 1.356, 0.48, right? Yeah, if 8 is supposed to be multiplied. And 6.6, 0.396. And here we'll have 4.6 multiplied by 60,000. So 276,000, which becomes 0.276 million. Okay, that would be your answer. Okay, three relevant factors. Analyze the data to make a recommendation to the organization. Look, one of the relevant factors could be the initial capital of installing filters. Now that's by far the most important thing. That it was 14 million something, somewhere around, installing filters. Then of course there is law and order. So of course one of them would be regulatory authority, regulatory authority for avoiding penalties. And there would be uh, what else? We can also talk about uh, the net advantage of buying and selling. These three would be the three factors. Now, for the calculations and recommendations, you people can just try to understand it. I won't make you people write it down. So look, without the filters, Hamjo must buy a total of 222 kilotons of carbon units, right? But with filters, if that's the condition, even before subtracting any potential money back from selling carbon credits, the fixed filter installation cost of $14 million is already higher than the entire 8-year carbon unit purchase of 13.3 millions as the one that we calculated earlier on, right? So the recommendation should be that Hamjo should not install the filters from a purely short-term financial perspective over this 8-year outlook. What they should do is, buying carbon credits directly saves the company roughly a huge amount. How many millions? Mm, a huge amount, basically, compared to the raw setup cost of filter framework, unless carbon unit prices are projected to scale dramatically, which is not possible. So the justification could be that financial figures should be rounded contextually to two decimal places. This is one thing that you should always mention in any justification of finances part. And long-term emission predictions are highly volatile estimations rather than fixed absolute metrics. So it's not a straightforward answer. You can say that it's really depending on the situation. Okay, I hope you all understood.